September 9th, 2024. I ask that I'll call this meeting to order and ask that you all rise for the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With flowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to our very own Tennille Towns for the singing of our national anthem, as well as the Grande Prairie Marketing Department for putting together the footage you see. I would like to take this opportunity to read our land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge these lands have been home to diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. Thank you for that. I would look for the adoption of the previous City Council minutes and recognize Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move the council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held August 26 as presented.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one with questions or concerns, I'll call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to the adoption of today's agenda, recognizing Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move that council adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Call the question. And that too carries unanimously. There are no delegations for our afternoon session. Just a reminder for those who are watching, we are not having an evening session. However, if you do want to be a delegation at a city council meeting, you can be at the 3 o'clock session, or if you come, rather if we're having a 6 p.m. session and you'd like the 6 p.m. session, indicate on the form. It's an online form. It's relatively simple. Just gives us a heads up that you're coming. We would appreciate that. Moving on to reports. First one under item 7.1. I'll wait a moment for that to get arranged or set up, rather. Moving to Chief McEachran for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So our first report today is in regards to Festival of the Tree sponsorship, and Director Rory Tarrant is going to present to Council on this request.
Thanks for that, Mr. Tarrant.
Thank you, and through the Mayor. Before you have a report regarding sponsorship for the Festival of Trees. Earlier this year, Council passed a new sponsorship policy which set out the bounds and the guidelines by which sponsorship would happen. Administration has throughout the year explored different sponsorship opportunities within the community that we felt have been in alignment with Council's strategic priorities and advocacy priorities. This is one of the opportunities that presented itself regarding the Festival of Trees. It is one of the larger fundraisers in the community for the Grande Prairie Hospital Foundation. They generate around $500,000 to $600,000 in profits each year for the organization. And it's also a great community event that is well supported by the community to come out and celebrate the holiday season. What has been discussed with the foundation is a $10,000 sponsorship, which would provide for free admission for youth for the festival. And we felt that that it was in alignment with some of council's other sponsorships, including the Bear Creek Folk Fest, where we sponsor for youth to attend there. In terms of the overall sponsorship for the Festival of Trees, it's in alignment with council's support for the attraction and retention of healthcare professionals, which is one of the things that the Hospital Foundation works with. It is also one of council's advocacy priorities is additional health supports. And so indicating the support for the organization we feel is in alignment with council's policies. And we do suggest that the recognition that we would get for the sponsorship is in alignment with our expectations and other sponsorships. And with that, it's our recommendation that we sponsor the Hospital Foundation's Festival of Trees in the amount of $10,000.
Thank you for that. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm just prepared to do business and speak to it if you're ready.
I'll come back to you in case there's questions for administration.
Thank you.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for the report, Mr. Tarrant. Really appreciate the Festival of Trees and all that it does, especially the charity, the Regional Hospital Foundation. We've done much work with that. I had a couple questions, just two. The first question I had is, have we ever sponsored the Festival of Trees before to this level or similar levels?
Councillor Tarrant.
Through the chair, there is annual city sponsorship in that we provide naming rights to the sign by the hospital that's provided. And so that's more of a gift in kind sponsorship that's provided at the time. But this is the first time in at least recent memory that we've provided a cash sponsorship.
No, thank you for that. And just my second question. We have another report coming up later on here through committee business, just in regards to funding. And our festival fund amount we still have $17,250 left over. Why did the administration think this was the right way to go with sponsorship versus the festival funding?
Through the chair, so there was like any organization, the Hospital Foundation could have put in a request, a grant through one of the existing grant programs. I can't speak to why they have not put one in, but this was so there was no recommendation to go through the grant programs that wasn't evaluated, but we did feel, as looking at the different sponsorship opportunities, that this was again in alignment with council's priorities.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. I just think that there are certain guidelines underneath our festival funding, and anytime we give out grants, we sort of get the same sort of sponsorship recognition as we do otherwise. It's just my hope that if like the Festival of Trees is going to continue to go on, that hopefully they'll learn to apply through the festival grant funding, as long as we have those amounts, because sponsorship or festival funding, it's one or the other, but we try to steer groups, especially festivals, into this pile of money. So that would be great. Thanks.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Mr. Trent, I see in your notes that the age group that we're considering free admission for would be youth 0 to 17 years. I think in the past, children under 12 could get in free, so it's really 12 to 17. I guess that I didn't put a question mark at the end of that sentence.
Mr. May, through the chair, just indicate, so the Hospital Foundation did indicate that youth have not ever previously been offered free admission. There has always been a cost. I believe they used to have like a family pricing there, but never has there been completely free for youth admission.
Okay. And I don't think they would qualify for festival funding because they don't draw from outside of the community, really. But anyway, my second question was, every year they kind of indicate what their fundraiser is targeted at for the hospital. Did they give us any indication of what they're seeking funding for this year?
Mr. Trump.
through the chair, they did not specify exactly what the funds would be allocated for this time. Just through our advocacy discussions with them, though, we have have an understanding of some of their needs. One of the big focuses for this year is fundraising for cardiac care at catheterization lab. There, and that so they've indicated that some of these funds would be dedicated towards some of their fundraising for that, as well as assisting in some of the advocacy for that work.
Okay, well, it's good to see that they align that well with our own advocacy issues. So I will support this issue going forward. Thanks.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would like to move council approve $10,000 in sponsorship to the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital Foundation for the Festival of Trees. And just speaking to this, I do understand Councillor Thiessen's questions around the festivals, but similarly to Councillor Blackmore, I feel that they have a greater chance of getting a sponsorship as opposed to a grant. And I've always found that if it's a sponsorship, I personally feel we actually get more recognition than if it was a grant. So when we establish the sponsorship pot of money, to me, this is the ideal situation for it. And I thank you for putting it, or them applying for this bucket rather than the other bucket, because I know we've got a lot of other great festivals out there competing for the same dollar. So to me, this is the right pocket of money, and I hope you support this. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. That motion is in order. Seeing no discussion or debate, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to the second item of business today under reports, item 7.2, the Bear Creek Dam Engagement Plan. And I'll turn that over to Chief McEachran for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So on August 26th, administration had brought forward a version of our Bear Creek Dam Engagement Plan, and council had directed us to come back with further information. So today, first, we're going to have Mr. Richard Sally with Engineering Services is going to come forward and discuss options that are available for council's consideration. And then once Mr. Sally has wrapped up his discussion with council, then Director Cooper and Ms. Bowman, our public engagement strategist, will provide an update on the engagement plan.
Welcome. Once you get seated, please feel free to start.
Thank you. So today I'm here to give a brief update and information on two separate projects that the city has underway. The first one being the dam armoring project, a regulatory requirement, and the second project being the Bear Creek Reservoir and Dam Feasibility Study. I'll start with the dam armoring project. So the Alberta government updated the Water Act and Alberta Dam and Canal Safety Directive in 2018. The regulations identify the city's responsibilities as the owner of the Bear Creek Dam. The city is required to meet operational requirements in our license, as well as monitor and conduct inspections. The 2022 inspections identified armoring as a high priority deficiency to address. These high priority items should be addressed typically within 1 to 2 years, and these items have a high probability or actual dam safety issue considered immediately dangerous to life, health, or the environment, or significant risk of enforcement. So the armoring deficiencies that were identified were for coverage and size as highlighted in the photo. The coverage is the one that's highlighted in the photo. The city has already retained a consultant for this project design, which is currently underway, and a cost estimate will be ready for the 2025 budget deliberations. So the second project is the Reservoir Feasibility Study. This study will be used to determine the feasibility and preliminary costs of 4 options over the remaining 30-year lifespan of the dam and control structure. The study will include maintenance and end-of-life costs for the city to consider in their long-term asset management plans for this amenity. The options to be considered are status quo, reservoir dredging, partial dam removal, and a full dam removal. So just to open up on those a little bit, the status quo option would see operations of the control structure remain as is and allow the creek, sorry, I lost my place. The status quo option would see operations of the control structure remain as is and allow the creek to function naturally through the area. This would see the amount of water in the spring and during higher rainfall events cover more of the area within the reservoir behind the dam. But then during late summer and fall, one would see the vegetation in creek as you would see it today. The amount of water within the reservoir would be determined by the amount of precipitation during the previous winter and throughout the season. The second option would be for reservoir dredging. This option would see sediment removed from the reservoir down to the bottom of the control structure to allow for a year-round water level. The partial dam removal option would be for the removal of the northern half of the earthen dam, concrete structure, and creek restoration. A full dam removal would be just that, in that it would see the removal of the entire earthen dam, control structure, and creek restoration. And then with that, I'll pass it over to Philip for the engagement portion.
All right, so I'll just quickly recap the engagement plan. When I met with all of you 2 weeks ago, we presented an option regarding engagement. We're now back with a revised version of that, which achieves the same outcomes, but it has more of a focus on inform-based engagement and consult-based engagement. So we'll just flip to the first slide. Always want to start these presentations with a reminder of the IP2 spectrum of engagement. So for this particular project, we'll be focusing on inform-based engagement and consult-based engagement. This is a much more summarized version of what that means. So in the case of informed engagement, we're basically saying, here's what's happening out to the community. It's a standard communication exercise. And then for the consult component, we'd be asking the public to share feedback. So to do that, the RFP would be issued. And then during the time from which the RFP is issued through while the study is conducted, there will be a public education exercise to bring forward information around the dam, what needs to be done around it, the history of it, all of those different dynamics to get the public fully informed and reminded on the state of the dam, its history, etc. And then in phase 2, once we have the results of the feasibility study, we have some hard numbers, some figures around what the costs are, then there would be a consult-based engagement program to bring that information forward to the public and get their feedback on that. What's key in this particular project, more so than other engagement exercises, is the stakeholder component. So in addition to targeting the public, we'll be reaching out directly to stakeholders in both phases. So for phase 1, we'll be reaching out to them to make sure they're aware that there's a public education campaign taking place. We may target specific groups in particular to make sure they're fully informed on what it is that we're educating them on. And then in phase 2, that would again be repeated, but this time with the actual hard numbers and the results of the feasibility study. In terms of the timeline, phase 1 runs from October through spring of 2025, and then phase 2 would run approximately through the summer, with the council getting the final outcomes of both the engagement and the feasibility study in the fall of 2025. And at this point, we can take questions on both presentations.
Perfect. Recognizing Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I have no questions or comments around the engagement. I think that's great. But for clarification, in 2023, the city did significant investment in the dam armoring. And so can you explain the work to date that's happened and how this ties into this study? Since we've already invested a lot of money and already started down the path of option, I believe it was 1.
Mr. Sally?
So with the work that is, sorry, through the mayor, the work that was already completed, we hadn't done armoring on there. What had happened was the initial 2020 DSR study had noted that we needed to remove the vegetation And so once we removed that vegetation at the beginning of the 2022 construction project, we had a subsequent another annual dam inspection that noted that the armoring was undersized and not didn't cover enough.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. So I understand, so 2025 is going to have a budget ask for fully armoring the dam, if I'm understanding that. And then the engagement is what we're looking at doing the 30-year window out on this. I'm still curious why we're doing the engagement now. I guess I'm still just really struggling. I appreciate the dam armoring, and that's a necessity, it's a requirement. If this has a 30-year shelf life left, if I'm understanding that, I'm not understanding the report right, why do we want to engage on something now? I'm still really struggling with that. We try to utilize our assets the best we can to get full life. So can you walk me through why we're doing an engagement of something now that we might not be doing anything with for a decade or longer?
Mr. Cooper?
So through the chair, so the engagement would be focused on the outcomes of the feasibility study. So once it's completed, we would share the results with the community and say, this study was took place earlier in the year. And at this point, we're looking for your comment on it and the different options that are contained within it based on the 4 items that Mr. Sally identified earlier. So fairly routine undertaking. Study is completed. We share it with the community and ask for feedback. And then when the results of both that exercise are completed and the report is deemed complete, it would then come back to council as part of the information piece on the broader feasibility study.
Okay, so I guess here's my concern. I guess I'll keep. So we go out and we do a feasibility study. We get all the input from the community. We do the report, and then it sits on a shelf for up to 20 years. How are we implementing this report? Just because we do it, is it happening that we're going to implement one of the 4 options in the next 2 to 3 years, or is this a report that sits on a shelf and then 20 years from now we look at it and go, okay, what did the community say 20 years ago as we're thinking about rebuilding the dam, or one of those 4 options?
Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. So some of what this study will provide, especially if perhaps there was appetite for option 2, which was the dredging portion of it, this would give future council an opportunity to understand what those costs are if they wanted to dredge it, to create a bigger amenity for recreation. If we wanted to start reintroducing more water sports into it, that's something that could happen more so in the near term of the 30 years. 30 years is an estimate. There could be any number of things that could happen or identified in a future dam inspection that might pull that 30 years closer to now than later. I would say that's probably the biggest thing here, is that there are some options that you could choose, or a future council could choose to do in the near term. We're choosing to do the longer term because there's also potentially things that, if a future council wanted to partially decommission it to remove some of the annual costs that we're going to have to make on it, or as every dam inspection happens, there could be steps that we could take to invest in whatever that decision is sooner than later. So what this does is it gives us more control within that 30-year window to make a decision on interim steps.
And just a follow-up on that. So do we have costings for the 4 options today, or is it, it's part of this process, but are we going to have costing for the 4 options before we go to engagement?
Chief Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. That is the intent.
Okay.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, particularly for Mr. Sally. In the 1976 or so, when the spillway was first really put into that dam site and the creek was straightened through Muskogee Park, prior to that, there was significant flooding almost every spring in Muskogee Park. And where the museum currently sits right now, if we didn't have the dam there to control spring runoff, we would not have a museum. What would happen to protect the downstream properties if the spillway was removed and the dam structure removed? Any ideas?
Mr. Sally?
Through the mayor, that would be something that would have to be looked at through the feasibility study and through the different options that would remove it.
But so far, we don't have an answer for that. Is that correct? Okay.
So can I just clarify on the same vein? You would do the study and it would have downstream impacts in regards to when it came back with opportunities. It would include costing, downstream impacts.
It would be something that would be considered as part of that. I don't think it would be something that you wouldn't look at as part of it, not so that you wouldn't be held liable for damages downstream.
Okay.
Later.
Keep going. Sorry, Councillor Blackmore.
And the current requirement by the Alberta Water Act is that we armor or use riprap on the inside of the dam. We're still going to do that regardless, or is this an option to not do that and move forward with other projects? Maybe Chief Glavin could answer that.
Chief Glavin?
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. We will do that regardless, so long as we're the owner of a dam, we have to be in compliance. So we will have to do that armoring no matter what we choose to do today. So they're two distinct pieces of work. So there's the armoring piece that we have to do, and then there is the study that's separate from that that's looking at options longer term.
Okay. As I said in the last meeting, and I agree with Councillor Plott, I think we're ahead of ourselves with this project. However, the only value I see is if we want community input on whether or not we're going to possibly dredge or clean out the reservoir. And if we were, now would be the appropriate time to do that. However, I don't know how the Alberta water people would feel about us because doing that because it does affect the creek, and the creek is protected by the Department of Fisheries. So I'm not sure where I'm falling on this. I'm not sure where I sit on this at all.
I'll keep moving through the queue, and if you have other questions, feel free to jump back in. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Definitely do hear some similar concerns from colleagues that I have around timing of this. I'm curious, so in my mind, where this really is about, do we want to start dredging? Do we want to make change at all? But especially the dredging one's the one that I could see accelerates timelines for us. Say that we did the feasibility study. It came back overwhelmingly. The public said, yeah, we want to dredge this. Council said, yeah, we want to dredge this. Are we picturing that we'd be able to start doing work in 2026, or would there be a much longer process than that likely to be able to dredge?
Mr. Sally? Chief Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I think we could get some of that out of the study. I think, like most things, subject to budget, if we had sufficient budget to do it, we could start doing the design on what that would look like and have that out for bidding as soon as practical. But I think the study would lay out the groundwork for that.
Great, thank you. And if the study did come back and said it was feasible to do a quick start on it, when would administration, that would mean significant amendments to our capital budget. When would administration picture council making those budget decisions? Is it picturing bringing budget amendments to us in fall 2026, or would it be they'd be going to those budget deliberations that are after the election? When would those happen?
Mr. Burke.
The plan as outlined right now is to at least get the costing available by next fall. Then it'll be another decision point for council whether to refer that to the 2026 budget in the fall or in subsequent years. So we haven't got to that point where we would plan to bring it forward to budget. We'd have that discussion with council once we had a better understanding of costing. There wouldn't be urgent to make the decision prior to the election next fall.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for bringing this forward. My concern is if the dam is removed, and I'm not sure that that's a possibility because it's there, and thank you, Councillor Blackmore, for bringing that up. There was too much flooding downstream. Is there any guarantee that it's not going to flood again? So I think there's too many options on the table. If the dam can't be removed, then we should be only focusing on whether or not We dig it out because we have to do the armoring anyways. So why do the armoring if you're thinking of taking it out, but you can't take it out because it may cause flooding? Aren't we putting ourselves at risk by having the public be engaged at this point when I think it's premature?
I'll give that to Chief Glavin.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Clayton. There's probably some more technical expertise that can answer this better than I can for some of it, but I think the outflows at the spillway are higher than the inflows in most of the events that are bringing water into the city. The reservoir is not part of our stormwater system. We don't utilize it as such. The creek did exist, obviously, before it was ever made a reservoir. As part of the study, we would look at if we were to go back to creating a channel for the creek, which if you look right now, you can see that there already is a channel for the creek. The water will carve a way through. That as part of the study, we would have to do a design to ensure that perhaps there is additional armoring that happens near the museum. So at our last meeting, we said that we have to do the armoring and that it's not a, we're going to have a use for that material in any scenario. So if we're going to decommission part of the dam, we're going to need to move that material somewhere else as part of that process. So we have to do the armoring as part of our regulatory requirements, no matter what we choose to do today. We just have to do it. That's whether we do the study or not, we have to do the armoring. Whether we choose to decommission this and it's going to take 3 years to do it, we have to do the armoring. So they're kind of two separate things.
Okay, and just for clarification, armoring is taking riprap and covering it in wire, and that's what reinforces the bank, or is it something totally different?
Mr. Sally?
The armoring can be riprap, just riprap placed on there, and it would be the size of rock, or there could be a different product used. It depends. What is there currently is rock. It's just that it's a small size.
So they want a little bit more strength.
Beefier rock, and then to protect the dam face from wave erosion.
So on your stakeholder engagement then, I was just curious why you've mentioned the Peace Watershed Alliance, but we haven't talked about the county and the effects on them downstream and upstream, what effects. I had mentioned that at council a week or two ago, and I'm concerned about that. So is there any chance that we'd be talking to the county, or right now it's not important enough to do that?
Mr. Sally? Mr. Cooper?
Through the chair, absolutely. I mean, there's no limitation on who we would speak to. The list is the outcome of a discussion we had internally, but part of the goal today is if council has additional stakeholders that we should reach out to, I would definitely make a note of that and include them in that process.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I think this is a great plan, actually, and I think talking about it now is really important. I do like what Councillor O'Connor mentioned about the county, because I kept looking at the list of people we're going to engage with, and I thought there's somebody missing here. And Councillor O'Connor just sort of light bulbed it at the beginning and end of the Bear Creek in the city of Grande Prairie is the county. So we should be mindful, and we should ask them to the table in that consultation. I guess this is a question for Director Glavin, just because it seems like there's some confusion around the table as to why we're doing such an early public engagement. But what we're essentially talking about is tens of millions of dollars one way or another that comes out of this. Either we have to deal with the regulations and maintaining a dam year over year over year, which is going to cost us tens of millions of dollars for that amenity, or we can dredge it up and keep the dam there, or we can dredge it up and turn it back to its natural state, which would likely involve armoring, which would channel the river kind of out the same way that the reservoir sort of flows the water out, and it'd just be a natural flow river. And hopefully we might be able to stock it with fish. That might be one of the things that we get from the consultations from people. But can you correct me if I'm wrong? It's going to cost us tens of millions of dollars one way or another over the course of 30 years, whether we keep the dam or get rid of it.
Chief Glavin?
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, the magnitudes are something that we'll get out of the study as far as what the cost will be. But yes, it is going to cost a substantial amount of money no matter which option you choose. There's annualized costs with inspections and maintenance that we're going to have to bear. Any of the results of inspections that happen that may flag a high priority, similar to the armory, that wasn't on our radar prior to that inspection, will come up. If you eventually remove the dam in some way, it reduces your annualized costs in that area. If you maintain it for a recreation piece, we just need to understand that there's costs associated with that from a regulatory perspective that are ongoing.
Awesome, thank you.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm just curious on the feasibility study. Will it come back to, okay, there's going to be the cost to do their status quo and the different options, but will it get into the operational long-term costs as well, or is this just the one-time capital to dredge it or the one-time capital to remove the dam status quo, or will it get into, to Councillor Thiesen's point, if we do this, then operating costs will drop or they'll go up? Like, I'm just curious, that will the feasibility study get into that as well?
Chief Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yes, we do have operational costs in the proposal.
Okay, so I'm just, from a risk perspective, I just need to ask administration, if we were to go ahead and it's coming, the feasibility comes forward, we approve the feasibility, we're going to have to do the 2026 armoring either way. If we don't approve this engagement plan, is there any risk to the city about not approving this plan today? Like, if we didn't approve this plan for 3 to 5 years, but we did the feasibility study and we did the armoring, is there any risk of not just going ahead with this engagement session? Because I'm really struggling with what we're trying to get out of this without costing and all the other things with it. And I think it's a slippery slope to ask people their opinion on something and they say, sure, that's a great idea and it's a $20 million hit, and then you got to decide around here whether you're doing that or not. So I always worry when you put things out in the community that you might not actually do. So is there any risk to the city if we didn't go ahead with this engagement strategy at all?
Just to clarify though, Councillor Plott, phase 1 will be to inform the public that we're going to explore options. Phase 2 will include the pricing, the costs, etc., before we go to the public for their input on what's possible. So it will have, when it goes to public for consultation, it will include the future costs, the operating costs, the capital costs, all of it.
So I guess to rephrase that, restate that is there any risk if we just didn't do this? Like, we just do the armoring, do the feasibility study that for our own internal knowledge, and didn't do the engagement? Are we liable in any way, or is this a requirement that we actually have to do this engagement strategy or study?
Chief Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm not aware of any regulatory, any regulations that would compel us to do the study. If we didn't do it now or whenever, it would just be our compulsory inspections under the Act and us adhering to the findings of those inspections.
Thank you.
Stand to be corrected if there's anything different, Richard.
Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm trying to figure out the cost to the city of just doing the feasibility study. So my 2 questions on it is, 1, how much do we expect to spend on the feasibility study itself? And number 2, I'd expect with a study like that, there'd be a whole bunch of information that would change, like the pricing of material. That's going to change dramatically in 5-10 years. But I'd also expect that there'd be material like the topography of the land that doesn't really change. Do we have any idea if council spent the money on the study, how much savings would it find us if we had to do a similar study 10 years from now? I'm just trying to figure out what kind of throwaway costs we're looking at if we do a feasibility study and then we don't touch it at all because the costs come back way too high.
Well, and sort of echo on some of your comments, that's one of my concerns. We do the feasibility study, see the options, the topography of the land changes, community's expectation changes, things cost more. We shelve this report and decide 20 years from now, oh yeah, we want to dredge it, but the public consultation never wanted to dredge it. Are we going to reconsult? Those are some of my concerns. I don't know if anybody from administration has any feedback on Councillor Bressie's questions in regards to the timing. Chief Glavin.
Yeah, I think like most things, any study, the longer you leave it on the shelf, the longer, either the political tide changes, regulations change, there's always risk. In this case, the options probably aren't going to change a lot over the term. It would just be if there were any significant changes to regulation or general public opinion on it.
And about how much are we expecting this feasibility study to cost us?
Give us one moment.
Approximately $200,000 is budgeted.
Thank you.
Councillor Thiessen, you're up.
Hey, Chief Glavin, I called it. Anyways, I just want to make a comment here because I do have some concerns. We're all elected to go beyond, to make decisions beyond our term for the community. And this is one of those decisions that we have to go beyond our term, where we have to think of the long term and the impacts that it could have on our community. And I think the public engagement is extremely important. And for $200,000, I mean, we spent that money on, I guess, less visionary goals and plans. It's questionable, I guess, around the table whether or not this is visionary, but there's lots of things that our community could come forward with. They could come forward and say, no, we want to keep the dam. We love the dam. It's great. There could be people that come forward and say, no, we want to renaturalize it and put fish in there and be able to canoe and swim because there's too much algae because of the standing water that gets held over the summertime. Or, no, we just want to turn it into a trail system because it's beautiful right now. It's green and there's a little creek down there, you know. So there's lots of input that our public could give that lays it on us, on our administration and us 9 people around the table to decide what our community is going to look like in 40 years from now. We got to empower ourselves with the right tools and the right ability to make those decisions going forward. We know already it's going to cost us millions of dollars over the next 30 years just to maintain the dam based off of regulations. But at the same time, it could be a clear blue pond with fish in it that people swim and take their families to for picnics around the banks on in 30, 40 years. So it's under that premise and the premise that we plant a seed for a tree today, not so that we can enjoy the fruits of the tree, but so tomorrow our grandchildren can. So that's how we need to think here. And I think that's what administration is asking us to do, is put on our long-term visioning caps and say, hey, you know what, this is a worthwhile endeavor to consult with the community. And I would encourage council to at least give it a second thought if you're hesitant. Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
So thank you, Mayor Clayton. It would cost $200,000 roughly to do the feasibility study. What would it cost to do the communications plan?
Mr. Cooper.
The main methods for the public engagement are public information. So that's just us creating content on our website, sending out direct mail pieces on some cases, hosting workshops. There'd be a push on marketing. So the exact costs, I don't have them calculated, but it's relatively inexpensive because the topic itself will generate interest very quickly, and people will be motivated to learn and participate, as they have been on other topics of notable interest, such as the GPPS or stormwater. Typically something like this, you won't have a problem attracting people's attention. You'll have challenges around making sure they fully understand what's taking place.
Thank you. So I'm leaning towards the fact that we really do need to do a feasibility study, which is the biggest price, the biggest ticket here. And if we are interested in following through with any of the items identified in the feasibility study, it would be pertinent to know what the community itself feels. My concern is that we present it to the community as a possibility. They come back and say, yes, we want the dredging and the full meal ticket, and we don't have the financial capacity to do that. That's my biggest concern. There's as the French would tell you, don't ask for something if you can't follow through. So I probably would support this if someone else made a motion, but I'm not. You don't have me 100%.
Councillor Palat. Sorry, before you go, no, you go.
Okay.
I had a question.
A question for administration. So I think that you've done an amazing job of seeing the inflows coming in. We're monitoring the inflow of the water coming in and how much is at the dam, so we know the outflows. On a year like this, with the amount of rain we've had, could we even have made a nice blue pond work? Would there have been enough water to actually hold water in that and make a beautiful pond? Or because we can't control the water coming in, we can certainly control what we do with the one that's there. But through our own knowledge of the data coming in for the flows, are we comfortable that on a year like this we could have actually filled this up and had a bit of a lake that we could have stocked with fish and that we could have made it into a nice paddling pond and all those things? So my first question is, could we fill it on a down year? And two is, would environment let us put fish and all these things in here that we're dreaming of? Have we done those check marks before we go and consult on that? Would we be allowed to put fish in there? Again, I'm just worried we're going up with this dream scenario, and then we come back and the government goes, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And we've informed the community that we're doing those things that we maybe can't even actually accomplish.
Chief Glavin?
Yeah, a couple of things there. So as far as filling it, we have minimum flows that we have to maintain under the spillway because it is a fish-bearing creek. There already are fish in there. We actually had a video from 2 or 3 years ago where we had thousands of fish at the bottom of the spillway that we were trying to remove when they were doing some of their work. As far as introducing fish, I think that's probably a question that can be asked. I'm not sure of the answer, but I know it's done in other areas, and I think we may even do that at the pond at Muskasippi. But on a low flow year like this, we did have a little bit of discussion. We didn't think it would likely accumulate this year with the minimal rainfall and minimal flows from upstream. Whether this year is an anomaly or not, there's a question, but this year would have been a struggle to keep water in it.
So is there a concern with going out if we can't accomplish one of the 4 types of options that we're saying is making this beautiful lake? And what if we can't do that? I guess, and to me, it's a little bit scary to think we might be putting forward an option that we can't actually guarantee will work. I mean, we can't guarantee the rainflow. It could get worse. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully we get lots of snow. We get lots of runoff. Again, keep going back to Councillor Blackmore's comment. I love informing and engaging with people if you can follow through with it. If you can't, it's super scary to me. So I appreciate the answer on that.
Chief Glavin?
Yes. So as far as the 4 options, option 1, status quo, essentially would be the you get what you get option. If it's this year, you're looking at what you're going to get. If it's a more normal year of flows, we'd be able to manage the amount of water. But one thing just for information is that every year we get more and more silt that accumulates in there. That, what you see right now is not how that reservoir was designed 50 years ago. It was much deeper. But with the silt that comes in from upstream, every year it fills in a little bit. So every year it gets harder and harder to maintain water in that reservoir just because there's not that much room to store water there anymore because it's not really acting as the reservoir was designed.
Chief Glavin or Mr. Sally, when the assessment comes back and if through public consultation it appeared that the public and council of the time were in favor of dredging it but chose to wait to extend the potential shelf life of the existing operation. Will the report identify concerns or red flags by waiting a certain period of time? So regardless of what the options say, will it have consideration for the fact that this needs to be done within the next 30 years, apparently? And if a council, has the vision to say, yeah, this is what we want to do in 20 years, is it going to say what the impacts of status quo are to the spillway, to the creek, to the embankment, all of it for the next 20 years by doing whatever option council and the public seem interested in? I know nobody has a crystal ball, but it sort of plays into some conversation of the timing.
Sure, I'll take a crack at that. So as far as the results that'll come in from the study, and the shelf life associated with it, I don't believe we'll be getting back like an engineered design that an engineer is going to stamp off and say that this is how you'll do it. If they were to do that, then you would have a ticking clock on that before, that engineer may no longer be practicing. We may not able to rely on that design at some point in the future. But that's not what we're getting in this. This will come back to options. So they'll be likely, the biggest risk is going to be regulatory on anything that they come back with. If substantial change in regulations change or happened, that would be the biggest risk in waiting long term.
Just a clarification, Chief McEachran, currently this consultation is budgeted for?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is included in our current budget.
Okay. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. And you just mentioned the regulatory process, and I keep thinking of the provincial government and regulations that they have. Has the province allowed anybody, to your knowledge, to dredge any of these public waterways in the past 5 to 10 years?
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure if, Richard, you're aware of any. I imagine if there was a similar situation in that you were using it as a functional reservoir for water, you would need to maintain a certain amount of capacity, and they would allow for that. I'm not aware of it. I haven't been, it's not been indicated to me that we couldn't get approval to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I would like to see some public consultation, but I also would like to have some dates similar to Mayor Clayton. What if we held out for 30 years? What if we held out for 20 years? What are the chances of meeting or not meeting the regulations that are put out in front of us? I mentioned last time we met that Ducks Unlimited has breeding birds down there on a regular basis. Well, they have had birds down there this year, and last year is not so much. But also, Oceans and Fisheries have got some stuff, and I know that the little tiny silver, little tiny fish is really, really important. Nobody eats them, but they're very important to ecology. And I just would like to know more about the science of what's going on down there, because there are a number of people in the community that reached out to me that are concerned about the concerns of the nature aspect of it. So if we're going to do any kind of formal presentation and get people's concerns on paper, those are questions that will be asked. I can pretty much guarantee that. Thank you.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Just a question for administration. I'm the chair of the Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance, so this is pretty much what we talk about, like how we reclaim natural water body areas, how we decommission dams, stuff like that, and we seek to advise on the best methods to do that kind of stuff. In saying that, I know that we work with grants that we get through the federal government, the provincial government, Oceans and Fisheries, to do different projects, reclamation projects, dam removal projects. So I know there are grants available to do this type of environmental work, even just taking apart the dam. As part of our public consultation and the price costing of that, has administration intimated what kind of grants we might be able to get in order to do this work one way or another? Whether it's to remediate the dam and keep it in place or to decommission the dam? Are we aware of the grants that are available?
Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I know we did meet with one not-for-profit to discuss a potential contribution in something like this. We haven't had any contribution negotiated to date. I'm not aware of any other grants, but I would ask perhaps Mr. Sally.
Mr. Sally.
Thank you. Currently, we haven't reviewed everything that's out there, but it would be something that we would look to review or have done as part of.
And I wouldn't be looking for anything specific, more or less like an order of magnitude. Well, to do this work, it's going to cost, let's say, $40 million, but we can get $7 million worth of grants to do this work if we're successful in all of our grant proposals. So that might go some way, at least around this table or in the public, to think one way or another, okay, well, this isn't as expensive as it is. Let's cross our fingers and hope that the city gets all the grants to do the work one way or another. But yeah, I would definitely have that just as a costing and sort of your discount.
All right. So I have no one else in the queue. I'll look to council to see if there's any business arising. Recognizing Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I'm just going to move forward with the business as presented, open to discussion or friendly amendments. But I would move that council approve the Bear Creek Dam Engagement Plan as presented.
All right. So that motion is in order. So that motion would set the engagement plan as presented, following the, which would be phase 1 and phase 2 as identified in your report. Seeing no one else in the queue. Councillor Bressie.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Still pressing the top button when I mean to press the bottom one, and the other way around. I am going to move an amendment to this, and then I'd ask for it to be ruled in or out of order before I comment on it. But I'd like to amend the engagement plan for council decision to be made in spring 2026. So I'm not seeing the mayor wave at me that wouldn't be in order. So just to speak to this.
The engagement will come back to council. I think
that's right. So
timeline is fair.
We'd still do the inform, we'd still do the consult, the same timeline laid out in this report, but council wouldn't actually make a decision until spring 2026. And just speak that the reason for that is that this is something where I think it is worthwhile doing this investigation. I do have residents talk to me about they want to see the reservoir full again. They wish it was like it was 15 years ago. They'd love to kayak on it, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to learn more about what it would cost, what it would take to do that. That being said, doing so would have a very significant financial burden. And this council is not going to be positioned to allocate budget to it. Even if we say, yes, we want to do that, we're not going to be able to allocate the budget to it. The next council is going to have to relitigate the whole decision, which takes a lot of time, and council has limited time to do its work. So I don't see the point of our council making the final decision. That being said, I would like to set up the next council so that by the time they get through their first strategic priorities exercise and they set out their first strategic plan, they've got all the decisions they need to make so that if they do decide they want to make significant changes, we've set them up with the pre-work necessary for them to make significant advancement in the course of their term. So I think it's worth doing the feasibility now. I think let's set up the next council to make a real decision on this.
So I just want to clarify. So your intent would be feasibility now, engagement now, but no council discussion or debate until spring of 2026.
Yeah, that's right. I think that if they want to make a decision in their next term, they need to make that early in their term. And I think that I don't know if they'll have the time to undertake feasibility study, get their legs under them, all of that. And so I think it's good doing the investigation on their behalf, but giving them the tools they need to make a good decision.
Okay. Recognizing Councillor Blackmore, discussion or debate on the amendment.
In regards to the amendment, I have lost track of the timeline that administration had presented for this. So I'd like, if I could get a refresh on that timeline.
Mr. Phillip? Mr. Phillip, Mr. Cooper.
I do that all the time. Phillip, not Phil.
Okay.
All right. So the times, through the chair, the times that I outlined are October 2024 to spring 2025. That's phase 1. And then summer 2025 would be phase 2. That's the technical engagement component, the first being education only. And then fall 2025 is when we had it down for council to effectively make a decision on what's been heard, what's been presented via the feasibility report.
With that reminder, I would support Councillor Bressie's motion. I feel that the fall of 2025, as it is an election year, would be challenging at best to bring this forward and get council's full attention. So I feel that certainly the spring of 2026 would be a better date. And I agree with Councillor Bressie that it may be a decision that would most benefit from being made early in a term. So I will support that.
I just have a question or clarification for Councillor Bressie. Is your motion for the engagement plan to allow council consideration in 2026? Because there very well may be no decision at that point. It's consideration of the engagement plan, I would assume.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Because at that point, council may decide to receive the report for information.
Sure, yeah, and where the wording of my motion comes from is there's a table in a report where under action says council makes decision, and so it's...
I guess there is if you receive it for information, it's still a decision, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so leave it as it is, sorry. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I'm very much in support of Councillor Bressy's amendment to the original motion as presented, and largely because I feel like I was going that way anyways, but I felt like an amendment was coming up, so I wanted to discuss or debate and see where that was on it. I totally agree with Councillor Bressy. In fact, I really like the timeline, especially considering that we're talking about an election year. It's a way to engage new councillors into the business of the city's doing, and not just the short-term business that we do term to term, but the long-term vision business that we all are going to be a part of, whoever is sitting around this table at the end of the election in 2025. So I think this gives not only a good timeline, a nice gap between the time that we've done all the engagements, the election is over. It also gives a nice space for the new council and all the new faces to get educated, not only on what the public engagement, the feasibility study stated, but also just on their own personal knowledge and their comfort on where they want to spend our taxpayer dollars. So I really appreciate this motion. I'm glad that Councillor Bressy tacked it on. Thank you.
Discussion or debate on the amendment. Councillor Plott? No, you're good. Okay. So I see no one else in the queue on the amendment. Would you like to close, Councillor Bressy? Okay. I will call the question on the amendment. Councillor Plott?
In favor.
Councillor O'Connor?
In favor.
That carries unanimously. Now back to the amended motion. Discussion or debate on the amended motion. Seeing none, would you like to close, Councillor Thiessen? Call the question. And that carries unanimously. Thank you for your presentations. Moving on to item number 8 in our agenda today, committee business. First on the agenda, the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held September 3rd. I will turn that one over to Councillor O'Connor for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move Council adopt the minutes of the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held September 3rd as presented.
That motion is in order, and seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Councillor O'Connor, you have a couple items of business today.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to have Council approve administration to pursue membership into the Prescription to Get Active, a not-for-profit corporation. And this is being done in about 26 communities across the province, and has shown that there is a possible successful way to get people off the couch and out and active, and it promotes a healthy lifestyle.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Connor, for that introduction. So that motion is in order. Recognizing Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Although I wasn't at committee meeting, because this isn't my committee, I was listening in the back. I just had a question for administration in regards to this. So this would effectively give the right for doctors to prescribe activity. So go for a swim, go for a workout, stuff like that. So my question is, all across Canada, we have doctor shortages. So how do we make amends to the people that don't have a doctor to get that type of prescription?
I'll turn that over to Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So looking at the report, it speaks to healthcare partners. So I'm not sure if that's restricted to doctors, but I'll certainly do that follow-up and find out. I think it's more than just physicians that can provide these prescriptions.
Okay, so if somebody went into the Medi Center, like just a walk-in clinic, they could get the same prescription there through this type of partnership?
I am going to confirm that. I believe that's the intent.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chief Lemieux.
No further discussion or debate. As I see no one in the queue, I'll call the question.
Bressy in favor.
That carries unanimously. Councillor O'Connor, your next item of business.
Yes, and this is a fairly long report, so I'm just wondering, do we need to have that brought forward first, Chief Lemieux?
Chief Lemieux, would you like to introduce this, or?
Certainly. So this is part of our ongoing funding allocation. So in your report, you'll find an appendix that lists what we're recommending for sport hosting grants and athlete development grants and clinic hosting funding. So this has all been vetted by administration, and these are the funding that we're recommending that is in line with our criteria.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move that council approve funding allocations as presented in Appendix A, and it's a very long list, so I'd beg forgiveness to not have to read it all. Thank you.
Perfect. So that motion is in order. I'll recognize Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. A question for Chief Lemieux. Chief, just looking at this list and just curious about applications. Do we fill in, or do we grant 100%? Do we grant 50% of the applications? I'm just kind of curious if you have a rough ballpark on that.
And I might ask my helper, Katie Bieberdorf, to help answer that question.
Welcome, Ms. Bieberdorf.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So depending on the funding stream, there could be a variety of amounts of funding. So for example, the athlete travel funding, depending on where they're going, there's limits based on in-province, out-of-province, international travel. Sport hosting grant, typically we don't fund more than 50% of the budget, which is in line with other streams of funding that we do. So they all kind of have their own little criteria around that.
Okay, so do you have any idea how many applications that we reject or give nothing to? Just kind of curious.
For applications that we reject, very few. Usually it comes down to if we have any money left in the budget or not. But at this point, all of the funding streams, except for the sport hosting grant, still had money in them. So we've expended that one entirely with this report, and the others still have some funds remaining for the year.
Okay, great, thanks.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for the report. It's nice reading individually about the different folks that are getting potential funding. I'm just wondering, do we still have a rule in there that only a certain sport can only get so much funding in that within the pursuit side?
Ms. Bieberdorf?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clayton. We do have that 20% of the annual budget per sport.
Okay, and just to clarify, is that 20% that would be between coach, athlete, like all the development, the
Correct.
different streams? Okay, thank you.
All right, so I see no one else in the queue, Councillor O'Connor, so I'm going to call the question on your motion. Appendix A. Councillor Plott, how do you vote?
In favor.
And that carries unanimously. Councillor O'Connor, another item of business for today.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'll just open up. This is very slow on the uptake, this is. I'd like to introduce Chief Lemieux to introduce this topic, please.
Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in front of you is amendments proposed to Policy 317, which is policy on funding for large-scale tourism event. As part of our policy review process, we look at policies on a regular basis, and there are some very minor changes recommended to this policy. In your report, you'll see a red line copy that basically shows three proposed changes.
Thank you. So I'd like to move that council approve amendments for funding for large-scale tourism events, Policy 317.
That motion is in order. I had a question for administration, and maybe Ms. Bieberdorf, I'll give you a little bit of time to get here in case Chief Lemieux needs your support. But my question is in regards to what the criteria was previously in regards to the percentage of traveling attendants for more than 100 kilometers away. I don't recall what it was originally.
Thank you. Yes, that was always one of the criteria that existed. It was just in the procedure, not the policy. So we've now added it into the policy.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm just looking for some clarification. So I'll use Bear Creek Folk Fest, for example. Great organization. We fund them. What if they didn't, after the event was done, they didn't hit 35% traveling from outside of a radius? What would happen then? Would we ask for funding back, or what would that look like? It's a huge event, but that's 1 out of 3 people we're saying outside of 100 kilometers, and I don't know if they would get that sort of numbers outside of Grande Prairie, and I worry that they wouldn't be able to qualify for this.
Ms. Bieberdorf?
Yeah, thank you. So we do sometimes see that in the application process, but we usually bring them forward for council consideration anyways. If they report back that their numbers are lower than that, we look at it from administration's perspective and then look at future years and if we may fund them less or differently.
So we're, I guess it's not as a yes or no. So if they had 27% out of area, we could still find a way to fund them with this policy, or would we be offside by breaking this policy if we knew they were not making that 35% criteria?
Ms. Bieberdorf?
Thank you. We would just look to council direction for if they would like to fund or not if they don't meet that requirement. It's in the policy, but there has been groups that have come forward before with less than 35 and asked for funding and been successful.
And it's so just so I fully understand. So they apply. Do we do a closeout and get those numbers after for that current year, or is it for benchmark for the next year?
Thank you. They do send us a statement of accountability after the event, 60 days after, and then they apply again the next year with their next year's numbers.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Just on that same vein, how are we, I would assume that events such as Bear Creek Folk Fest isn't holding back 35% of their tickets for people that live more than 100 kilometers away. They go on sale, they sell it relatively quickly. If all local people want to buy it, and it's like by December and the event's till next year, is there any regulation on that at all?
Thank you for that. We certainly could look at the funding agreements to put something in place like that. It does have the grant criteria referenced in the funding agreement, so it is something that they sign off on before we release the funds.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I wonder if we've ever had consideration to putting a number of people from away that they're selling tickets to instead of percentage. Just thinking, I don't know if we've got event A that has 2,000 people and sells 750 to actual tourists, and event B that has 4,000 people but sells 1,200 tickets to out-of-town tourists. I'd actually be more excited about event B than event A. So have we ever thought about putting a number in here instead of a percentage?
Ms. Bieberdorf?
Thank you. No, we haven't looked at that. We certainly could. I think it's just challenging with the number of events, and there's a lot of different reasons why some events have more ticket sales than others. So it would be a lot of work, I think, on the back end to try to figure out all those exact numbers.
I'm just trying to figure that. So I'm not quite understanding where the hiccup would be in terms of if we said, hey, the criteria is 2,000 people per day with 750 or more traveling further away. Why would it be more difficult to figure out if they had 750 people that were from out away versus that percentage?
Thank you. I think the challenge would just be in that they wouldn't necessarily know how many tickets they're selling. So they may have a cap on their tickets or they may not. So they may be able to take 10,000 people at their event, or they may only be able to take 2.
Right.
So we're funding them in advance, so they may have the opportunity to sell more. It's a little bit tricky.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Plott. Oh, sorry, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much. I remember back when it was only 50 kilometers away, and then we upped it up to 100 kilometers away, which I think is totally fine. I think if you're a large-scale tourism fund, you're going to pull people from everywhere. We're using Bear Creek as an example. I was there all 3 days, and there were so many people from Grande Prairie that no longer live in Grande Prairie that returned to Grande Prairie to visit their friends, their family, and everything else. Like, I saw so many old city employees, so many old friends, and they just came for the weekend because the Bear Creek Folk Festival is here. These people have moved on to Edmonton, Vancouver, Victoria, Calgary. Winnipeg was the farthest city staffer that I met on the grounds here. That's where they moved to and came back. I was like, well, I haven't seen you in so long. Where'd you go? They're like, Winnipeg. So it is actually a draw for the Grande Prairie locals, and especially the Grande Prairie locals that leave. It gives them a reason to come back home. So I think when the event organizers of any event create something really awesome, it's going to bring not only people to our community, but original residents back to our community to share that time with friends and family. So I think it's great.
Right. No one else in the queue on the motion. So I'll recognize Councillor Plott.
Sorry, Mayor Clayton. As I'm thinking about this and I'm reading this with 2,000 people per day or more, like would our Comic-Con or something, or Grand Con, would they be getting that? And I'm worried about that number being there are we going to make it really hard for new organizations to get to 2,000 people a day on a multi-ticketed event? And are we basically saying it's Folkfest and Stompede and that's our AB every year? Like I'm wondering where the 2,000, I appreciate that we've expanded this and we've tried to put more parameters around this, but I am wondering if 2,000 is actually really high or not. Like if we're going to have a new event come to town, is 2,000 on a multi-ticket event, is there opportunities for growth still there? Like I'm hoping there is, or is that choking it if we put it at multi-day and 2,000 minimum?
Ms. Bieberdorf?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Anytime we get inquiries about that, we still encourage them to apply, and we still have brought forward applications that don't meet all the criteria. So we certainly aren't discouraging them. We encourage them to apply with new events, especially to try to bring new events to town. But they often don't meet their criteria in their first year.
So I'm just, having said that, I mean, so if a rule follower reads this, they're probably not coming in, right? And so, and I appreciate administration and council's got some latitude to work with people, but I do wonder if you're a rule follower and you read that and you don't have 2,000, you don't apply. And that would be my fear, is that we have organizations that would want to try this, wouldn't apply by the letter of the policy. And although we're giving some latitude on it, that's kind of a choice by the sounds of it on this. So is there a number that we feel we'd be still protected on that? I am worried about that 2,000 being too high.
I think that if an organization is looking to have a large-scale tourism event, they'd be calling administration to ask them about opportunities for funding. And at that time, administration, would you not say, you don't quite meet the criteria, however, you can go to council. Is that correct?
Yes, that'd be correct. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, I did have a question in regards to multi-sport events that potentially have 2,000 people in a day, could potentially qualify for large-scale tourism as well, correct?
Correct, yes. And we did take 50,000 out of 2023's budget, I want to say, of large-scale tourism for the Alberta Winter Games.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. I see no one else. I'm going to call the question.
Bressie in favor?
That carries unanimously. Any highlights from your meeting, Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, Mayor Clayton, I have 3 items. First, the under community and social development, the city has been invited to attend the market sharing event at the FCSSAA conference in November to highlight the success of the Youth Advisory Committee and the initiative, and that is makes Councillor Thiessen and me very proud of the work that the director has done, and the number of kids that have come forward and have taken an active role is a great example when somebody outside of the city of Grande Prairie says, these guys are doing it right. Second, at the CKC, the lacrosse drop-in pilot program at the Dave Bar Arena in August was overwhelmingly positive, with many parents expressing gratitude for the lacrosse availability as a drop-in event. And lastly, the Special Olympics fundraiser was overwhelming success. Touch a Truck. I saw the Sherpa truck and I got all wobbly inside. It was such a cool vehicle. And the kids, I think Councillor O'Toole will tell you that people love the bus. So I don't know what's going on. The fire truck's usually number 1. So that's my report, Mayor Clayton.
All right. Didn't really happen at your meeting, but happy that you could do some of your roundtable early. Item 8.2, Invest GP Committee. Exactly. Item 8.2, the Invest GP Committee happened on September 3rd, and I'll look to Councillor Blackmore for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council receive the minutes from the September 3rd Invest GP meeting.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Call the question. That carries unanimously. Any highlights from your meeting, Councillor O'Connor? Or Councillor Blackmore, my apologies.
I'm much younger than him. Yes, I have some meeting highlights. I I have quite a bit under the rural renewal stream, which have been experiencing, employers in that program have been experiencing quite a increase in inquiries from overseas candidates due to a recent social media campaign from an immigration consultant. So in order to support those employers who are not actively recruiting, administration has temporarily removed a list of improved employers from the website and is working with each one of them to ensure they are still actively recruiting and wish to be listed publicly, and that list has now been updated. The province has recently announced changes to the AAIP program and will shift to an expression of interest system on September 30th. This will not directly affect the city's program, but it will impact processing timelines for candidates. The city's documentation has been updated to reflect this change, and we're in ongoing communication with the province. At the recent community partnership meeting, 11 employer applications were approved for 17 positions. An additional 17 employer applications are currently under review, and over the last few weeks, 10 candidate endorsement letters were issued for a total of 245 candidates endorsed this year. Under healthcare, administration has hosted a healthcare roundtable on August 28th with local stakeholders to support the healthcare and attraction programming that we run. The Grande Prairie Regional Hospital welcomed 4 physicians in the month of August, and administration has hosted 2 on familiarization tours and continues to support their integration into the community. This week, a student orientation is taking place, and this would actually be last week. Student orientation is taking place for first-year medical students at the University of Alberta, and the city sponsored a hole at the Chamber of Commerce golf tournament, engaging with the business community and sharing key information. The month of August, administration supported the mayor and CAO in meeting with major employers to discuss council priorities, learn about their businesses, and share how Invest Grande Prairie supports them. Finally, there are a few events coming up that people may be interested in. Of course, last week we saw Kim Mitchell here with Experience Grande Prairie. We have the Storm opening Fan Fest game versus Whitecourt Wolverines on September 13th. The Nighthawk Comedy Night fundraiser is September 21st. Peace Country Invitational Professional Bull Riding will be September 27th to the 28th. The Rotary Scarecrow Festival is October 4th, and the Grande Prairie Women's Show will be, that's the 30th anniversary edition, will be I don't have the dates here, it says October 26th, is that correct? Yeah. And that concludes my report.
Thanks for that. Let's see. There we go. There is no one in the queue. I will call the question. Please vote. Well, I apologize for that. There you go. I was thinking you were receiving it, but we already did that. Moving on to item 8.3, Council's Strategic and Communication Services Committee meeting, also held September 3rd. I will look to Councillor O'Toole for introduction.
Okay, get that vote button ready. I got a thing. I move the council adopt the minutes of the Strategy and Communication Services Committee meeting held September 3rd as presented.
That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with discussion or debate, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. One item of business today, Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, we have the 2022 to 2025 Strategic Priorities Progress Update, and I'll just go over a couple of items here, and then I'll give you the motion that council or committee recommend council receive this report for information.
All right, that motion's in order. Sorry, did you say you had a couple?
Yeah, I'll talk about it after the vote.
Okay. Recognizing Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Always appreciate the report and how advanced it's got from over the years with the detail on it. I am curious about a few that I see that say in progress, for a 2024 date, but they look like they're a quarter done. Are we still? I'm just curious how that works on this. Like when I look at Explore Entertainment and Recreation District concept, it says status ongoing. It's going to get completed in 2024, but it looks like it's a quarter done. There's about a half a dozen that are like that. I'm just wondering if are we still planning on having those done this year, or are we looking at sliding dates on any of these?
Mr. Burke.
During the last update of the year, we'll walk through all of the ones, whether there's recommendations to finish this year or not. They're all specific. Some will be tied into budget deliberations, and some of the check-ins around that. But there will be a point before this is finalized in the year of an update of exactly where we are and direction from council, whether to proceed or not. Most of the ones that aren't nearing completion have been paused for some reason, but they're still on the list as there's still some work going on.
No, that's great for clarification. Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I noticed in the report that the Dave Barr Community Centre daycare space has been successfully leased and launched and is now welcoming up to 64 children, which is really good news. I've also heard in the community that there's been a number of other growth of spaces in daycare and in 24-hour daycare as well. And so I'm wondering if Chief McEachern has any numbers that she could update us on, as while they're not city initiatives, they do affect our strategic priorities.
Chief McEachern.
Thank you, through the mayor. I have some excellent numbers to provide today. We took a look at our increase in available spots between August 2023 and September of 2024, so September 4th was the latest date. We have increased in the city 363 spaces since that time, so that equates to a 15.9% increase in available daycare spots available in the city. So excellent news.
Sorry, can you repeat the percentage?
15.9%.
Great, thank you.
And if I could ask a follow-up question, Chief McEachern, I had heard that there is a 24-hour daycare in Grande Prairie now, or at least a daycare taking place spaces for 24 hours. Is that true, or?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, through the mayor. Yes, that is correct. We do have a 24-hour daycare that's available now, and I'm not sure how many spaces. I can get that information, though.
It's just good to know.
Yeah, it opened approximately a few months ago. I did a tour on the day that it opened. It's located in the Prairie Plaza, so behind the Prairie Mall, and it's been open for about 3-4 months.
So, yeah, I think that's really good news that we have managed to move that far forward on a strategic direction.
100%. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor O'Connor, did you have more comments before we vote on your motion? O'Toole, sorry. They're both O's. They're both gray. Sometimes it's hard.
Well, I would just like to mention that advocacy, we at council has been working very hard as well as administration. Electricity distribution rates, costs, healthcare supports, medical first response funding, Northwestern Polytech support, provincial and federal funding for housing needs. Other advocacies are priorities, include rail service, provincial changes to automated traffic enforcement, and immigration biometric scanning. As the report was for strategic priorities, we've got a list, and these are completed. We have a truth and reconciliation report, road structure review, sport tourism function, business case, bike park at Crystal Lake, transit redesign implementation, public security unit proposed, current state of policing assessment, stormwater utility model options, enterprise resource and planning, system implementation, branding and image strategy, affordable housing action plan, municipal development plan, livable neighborhoods and land use policy, outdoor space enhancement, recreation culture strategy. We've got, hang on here. We've got land inventory, gap analysis, cybersecurity strategy, rent affordability options, neighborhood immunities, benefit-driven procurement, comparement, energy study review, Hughes Lake servicing strategy. We got the labor market study recommendations, beautification and entrance landscaping project proposal, accessibility, mobility, and connectivity review, attraction, retention of healthcare professionals and strategy, business incentive assessment and options, and the Bear Creek slope study. So those are just some of the ones that are completed, and the list is still more to go, but we're doing a really good job of getting those knocked off. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for your update, Councillor O'Toole. I'll call the question on the motion.
Bressy in favor.
O'Toole in favor.
That carries unanimously. Any highlights for your meeting, Councillor O'Toole?
I do. Just give me a second to get things working again. Hang on. I cannot find my highlights. It disappeared. Can't find 8.2.
All right.
I will leave that. I think I talked enough already.
Okay.
But we did get most through some of that for sure.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks for your update. And if you're online watching us, under the document that's in our package, there is reports there from the service area update. Moving on to item 8.4, the Operational Services Committee meeting held September 3rd, recognizing Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the Operational Services Committee meeting held September 3rd as presented.
That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue for discussion or debate, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. One item of business today, and I'll turn that over to Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you again, Mayor Clayton. The item of business that we will be voting on today is extended producer responsibility, and the recommendation here, and I'm going to call them both out, that I recommend that Council choose the opt-in service model and direct administration to negotiate service contracts with Aquaterra to continue providing recycling services in the city, and 2, direct administration to bring a report to the appropriate standing committee in April 2026, providing an evaluation of the performance of the EPR program within the city. So a little background and information for people before we go into the vote, but the city owns the land at the Eco Center, as well as we're a shareholder in Aquaterra, which does all of our recycling services. In October of 2022, the province decided to go to an extended producer responsibility model and appointed Circular Materials, being the only registered producer responsibility organization available in Alberta for single-use products, including packaging such as paper, plastic, cardboard, and stuff like that. So we had a deal to figure out which model we would choose, which originally was October 31st, but Circular Materials came back to the city on August 21st and said that they needed to revise the update or the date that we would finalize whether we're in or out to September 16th. So council discussed this at committee. I highly recommend the public to take a look at the report presented, as our administration did a good job weighing the benefits versus the risks of this. I'll just speak to the benefits right now of the opt-in method, which is what is in the motion. That would mean that the city would still retain some influence over the recycling program. It also would mean that city residents would see a reduction in recycling costs from 30 to 50% of the recycling costs. Currently, that's about $10.49 service on your bill currently. There will be no change in the level of service to residents, and glass would be added to the recycling list again. By choosing this opt-in service model, we'll reduce not only the monthly cost to city residents, we also will not impact the current recycling services that they receive today. And there will be an opportunity, as part 2 of this motion states, to reassess or assess the success of the program as we move forward. So with that all being said, I hope I let administration off the hook well, and I'll call and ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
All right. So motion is in order. I see no one in the queue with discussion or debate. I will call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen, any highlights from your meeting?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just a couple. If you're not aware of it, you should be now. The aquatics area is shut down from September 3rd to the 27th. This is an annual bit of upkeep that we need to do to ensure that the pool is in tip-top shape, fresh and clean, and any remediations that we need to do underneath the water, we can get to that as well. An update on transit. Year-to-date ridership is 55% higher. This is becoming the good news story of my report every single council meeting from the same period in 2023. Ridership for August is actually the highest it has ever been in the city of Grande Prairie, which we counted a total rider population of 59,000 people in the month of August alone. So just to state that, that's about 1,900 passenger trips per day. And if I'm extrapolating the August numbers, which isn't actual real science statistics, but that would mean 695,000 trips throughout the entire year if we're just using August numbers, which is 10 times our current advertised population. So that's a huge success story for transit. So great job to our administration and council. We can pat ourselves on the back for helping along the way with that too. And good on the kids for taking those transit. As Councillor O'Connor said, they are popular around the touch of trucks. The last thing I'd like to state is administration is planting trees in various locations and doing their tree pruning as well to ensure the health of our beautiful carbon sinkers. And work on the Urban Forest Capital Project will begin later this month. And that's all I have for today. Thanks very much, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Moving on to the rest of our agenda, there are no items of correspondence today, no delegation business, and no notice of motions. We will now move to council member reports, and I'll start with Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So it's been a fairly busy last couple of weeks, I think, for all of council. So I will more or less stick to the things that I was at that not very many other people attended. On September 27th, I was at a meeting with MXD, which is the consultant we've hired to kind of kickstart business development ideas in the Hughes Lake and Airport area west of the city. It was a great meeting. The consultants are extremely passionate about what they do, and I look forward to the opportunities that they're going to open up for us. At least the ideas that they're going to open up for us. I also attended a Downtown Association board meeting. A couple of things coming out of that. There, as Councillor Thiessen just mentioned, there are trees being planted in the downtown that are replacing trees which did not survive our last winter. Those tree plantings may be disruptive to flows through the downtown. So hopefully people will be patient and look forward to the end result. Also, we got a report about the Street Performers Festival, which was quite successful. The Friday night, I understand, was, because I was out of town, the Friday night, I understand, had weather issues, but other than that, things went well. And a couple upcoming events the Downtown Association is working with the city on is the Spooktacular, which takes place at Bennett Center on October 26th, and the Christmas tree light up on December the 1st. I also attended a ribbon cutting at the Veterans Association Food Bank. This is a relatively small food bank, but they do feed provide food for 26 veteran families in Grande Prairie. Each family gets 2 baskets and $150 a month. And those baskets and supplies are actually delivered to them and are not all in Grande Prairie. Some of them are out of town, as far away as Valley View. I attended the Experienced GP event on last Friday night. It was good to see so many people out and having a rocking good time. I, along with the mayor, Councillor Palat and Councillor O'Toole, golfed in the Reading University golf tournament, and we were big winners. We came away with the most honest foursome out there, which is golf speak for loser. And then I attended a ribbon cutting at Cobblestone Dental, which is on the east end of Grande Prairie in the Cobblestone business community. There was many people at that ribbon cutting. The office space was absolutely overflowing, and the comments that we heard continuously from their staff was, it's so, like, I can't believe so many people came. Like, we're the dentist. People don't come to us like that. And clearly, people are excited and looking forward to having more and more services on the east end of Grande Prairie, as am I, as that's where I live. So that'll be really exciting. And that would conclude my report, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, it's not honest. Our honesty, I guess, for having the highest score was the bonus for us, but for the golf. Also attended the Veterans Association ribbon cutting and the dinner with MDX with Councillor Blackmore as well. A couple other events for me. We had a Nighthawk board meeting. I just want to remind everybody we do have a comedy night coming up September 21st. There will be an online auction as well. So if you can't support by getting out and having some laughs, check out the online auction. We had a further conversation about potential to remediate the hill and another opportunity to look at how we can remediate the landslide and look at getting that chairlift open. So more reports coming back on that. Was also got to attend a finance library committee meeting where we discussed our upcoming budget. I want to thank Haley, our new executive director for the library, bringing further information on some other cost-cutting mechanisms. Getting us open on Sundays was a big part of her push, so I appreciate the work she's doing there as well. Was also on the library thing. Our city council met with the library board as part of our ongoing engagement sessions with our external agencies, and it was a good conversation. I think it's always great to exchange information in those forums, so I want to thank everybody here and the library board for their engagement as well. And then today went to the Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Awareness Day with Mayor Clayton and a couple other council members here to hear the proclamation and have some good conversation with some agencies there. And that's my report.
Thanks for that, Councillor Platt. Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. And as Councillor Platt just mentioned, today is Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Disorder Awareness Day, and attended that. They had a great little trade show there at the Ernie Radburn Pavilion, and they fill so many gaps in our community. So thank you to everybody involved with that. Attended the Special Olympics Summer Games fundraiser, and I was shocked when I got there. It was a huge event. Not that I expected anything small, but it took up a couple of city blocks and was just a great turnout, a real feel-good event. Lots of horns honking, and fortunately I got there early and managed to have a quick little conversation with Doug Eady before he was working the entire crowd, but he was the celebrity there, and as he is at every event. So it was a wonderful feel-good event for the city. Last Thursday, I was able to attend the Woodland Home Hardware ribbon cutting, and I actually got to deliver a little bit of history on the Woodland store. I was actually a young guy in 1992 at their first grand opening when Henry Ham was flipping Ham's Burgers. I was there for the second grand opening after the fire in 97. They had a grand opening in 98 that I was able to attend, and so attending this next grand opening where they did the entire inside of the store. It's brand new, modern, looks great. And so it's just nice to be a little fly on the wall as the history of the store as Grande Prairie continues to build into the future. Experience Grande Prairie with Kim Mitchell was a blast. I was pleasantly surprised by the brass tactics. Apparently, it's the Oilers brass band that plays there, and I was having flashbacks to going on an Oiler game with Councillor O'Connor as he's dancing through the concourse with these guys playing the music. So they just had a smile on everyone's face, and so many people up and dancing for that. And then finally, for me, the Business After 5 mixer at 92 Bevco. Well turned out. Councillor Bosch was in attendance as well. And she won a door prize. I luckily won a door prize. And Councillor O'Connor was holding a ticket, but he didn't win the door prize. But again, for when it comes to the honesty, he reached out to find out who actually won it and let them win. So that's my report, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. And yeah, it was interesting. I tried to find the person that owned that ticket all night and couldn't find them. So they said, you won, this number's 1. And I said, no, I can't take it. So I asked for a name because I saw her name tag and she was standing right beside me. Who knew? Anyway, went to a lot of the other events. Yeah, one that stood out, of course, a drop-in event for the 2025 Special Olympics. And the number of kids there was mind-blowing. I don't know how many there were, but they were crawling over every single vehicle there, and the Sherpa was my hit. And then a special meeting of our mock council with Councillor Thiesens, the Champions Gym was their final one of the year. And Mayor Clayton was able to join us and brought some treats for the kiddies. And so they really liked it. And they gave us a huge card with all the kids signing on it. And they all gave it to us. So that's my report, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Thiessen.
Sorry, I wasn't ready for that, Mayor Clayton. Wow, it was a good and busy week. Most of the events have already been talked about, but I did attend a technical committee for Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance and an impromptu executive committee meeting for Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance as well. And of the events that haven't been mentioned yet, I got to attend the Parkinson Step and Stride event, Unbreakable, which is an annual walk event with Councillor O'Toole and Mayor Clayton. I didn't get to do the walk this year. Normally, I always do the walk. This year, though, I just stuck around for the warm-ups because we had a very important National Firefighters Memorial Day to attend. And so I was in attendance with Mayor Clayton and Councillor O'Toole, as well as our CAO, Mr. Burke, for that. And just honoring the firefighters, those who have fallen in the line of duty, is kind of a somber event, but it's important that we pay attention to that. I know we're half-mast across the city, but to be with those firefighters on those days is all the more important in community building and ensuring that our community stays safe by, recognizing the sacrifices that some people have to make to do that. Besides that, I guess I'm going to use just a little bit of time here to make just a couple announcements. I know we all know around the table, but perhaps the community doesn't know that this is going to be the last official council meeting of our Chief of Staff, Janet McEachern, who has had the privilege, I've had the privilege of sitting beside her for most of her tenure here with the City of Grande Prairie. She has been a great Chief of Staff and employee for the City of Grande Prairie. She's picked up duties off the side as Chiefs left. We seem to kind of slide it over to Janet, and she took care of them in the interim and sometimes the long term. So we've been very blessed to have you and your professionalism with our organization, and I can only wish you the best future and the most blessed future in all your future endeavors. So thank you for being part of it. Part of it, as in the dream team that is the City of Grande Prairie. Finally, speaking of the dream team, I want to sing to Janet, for she's a jolly good lady, but there's a better song to sing today, because 7 square years ago, our CAO entered into this world. So as we have one staff leaving, 49 years ago, our city manager, Shane Burke, was born on this day. So I'd just like to take this moment. I know we sing at the beginning of council meetings. I'll sing to you after, so to spare the embarrassment. I know how this goes. I gave you a birthday card once. It was an apology card, and it just happened to land on your birthday. But happy birthday, Shane. 49 years, milestone next year. We're very happy to have you still with us and back with us. And you make this organization shine with the people that you bring and keep around it. So happy birthday, Shane, to many more. Thank you.
Councillor Bressie.
Wow, follow up on that, eh? A couple things that haven't been mentioned yet are I got to attend the MD of Greenview Clay Shoot. It's an awesome initiative they do every year where they host all of their municipal partners and not just municipalities, but also the nonprofits and various companies that do business in their municipality to raise money for their food bank. It was great to get to attend with Mr. Tarrant and a couple members of our GPPS. And I shot 8 targets this year, so I was quite proud of that. Yeah, I'm not good. So 8 was a big number. 8 of 52.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 16%.
It's still better than many people.
It was also on the AB Munis World. We got to have both our Alberta Municipalities Board and our Alberta Municipal Service Corporation Board retreats to advance some projects that we're working on those sides. And then something that was new for me was the province has struck 6 working groups on mature assets. So basically oil and gas sites that aren't producing in the ways that they used to anymore. And I got appointed to the working group on municipal taxation. So we had our first meeting and didn't really get to get into the meat of municipal taxation too much, but definitely got an overview of what's going on with mature assets across the province. And it's not the prettiest story. We're very blessed to be in our region, but definitely there's some challenges across the province that are already happening or just going to become deeper the next little while. So it's going to be an interesting work getting to learn more about that and hopefully doing my small part to help figure out the path forward.
Thanks for that, Councillor Bressy. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I found my report for strategy and communications. I'm just going to highlight 2 of the items. And if you're looking for more information, it is on our minutes of the City of Grande Prairie Council. Executive Services Strategy, the Community Micro Grant Program has provided $12,700 to 12 different organizations and individuals. And there is $7,300 remaining in the fund, and we encourage community organizations to apply. Once again, under the city clerk, the municipal census is wrapping up with final analysis and administration reports, with a report anticipated for council by the end of the month. Recruitment for boards and committees opens, I think it was last week, so tomorrow, 24 vacancies to be filled across the 9 boards and committees. As for my, there's more there, but as for my roundtable, I attended a good portion of the items that were mentioned. The one that happened on Sunday was one that I'm pretty proud of. I was appointed to the Special Olympics Board, and we had the Touch-A-Truck. Overwhelming success. The City of Grande Prairie had the GP Fire in there. We had a street cleaner. We had a gravel truck with a snow blade, the Zamboni, and the transit bus. And I'm going to tell you the top 3 were probably the transit bus, the Zamboni, and GFL had a garbage truck, garbage bin truck, and those were the ones that were the big highlights. We had the ambulance service. The RCMP brought a boat and a truck. Grande Prairie Police Service showed up. Now, these have sirens, and you know exactly where they were. You just had to go to where the sound of the sirens were. Peace Wapiti brought a school bus, and that was another unbelievable amount of attendance going through there. CN had a mini truck, or mini train. Brant Tractor brought a rock truck, which is a big industrial truck for hauling rock and fill. We had Rai Tai had a big Commander bed truck. It's probably the biggest vehicle that was there. And there was kids that were so proud they could walk right underneath that truck and not touch their head. And the other big highlight was Smash and Sons with their purple wheel loader. And I can tell you I don't know how many people were there, but I think there were some kids under the age of 10, some kids under, including 6-year-olds and less, that were just so excited. And then they had their grandpa. And so the grandpa had to sit in the chair, bounce the grandchild, and the grandchild wanted to sit in the chair all by himself. And it was just smiles after smiles after smiles. So, and all the money that was raised went to Special Olympics. And thank all that attended. And I do want to give a shout out to Lisa Kirchhoff, who sort of somewhat organized it for the city and Special Olympics. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your report, Councillor O'Toole. Many of the events that I attended have already been mentioned. Had the opportunity to meet with representatives of Invest Grande Prairie and our council appointees at the Grande Prairie Airport in the discussion with MDX. Looking forward to further conversations around opportunities in business growth and economic development in the business of aviation. Met with with Chief Glavin and a resident that owns a landscaping company to talk about future growth and opportunities there. Contacted randomly about having a conversation from the representative doing the Regional Agricultural Society's sustainability study. So did a call with Deloitte, who is the consultant on that. Had a conversation from the representative the Diversity magazine. In 2025, they're hosting their awards again in Sylvan Lake, and they will be looking for community members and organizations to nominate some of the great organizations in our community that are doing significant work in regards to diversity. So as I receive that information, I'll be sure to share that. Attended the Chamber of Commerce 92 Beverage Co. Mixer. Had an opportunity on separate occasions to meet with MLA Nolan Wiebe and MLA Nolan Dick, and MLA Ron Wiebe, just to sort of see what information they might be looking for as they get prepared for the fall session. So working with Mr. Tarrant Intergovernmental to get them the information to represent us when they go back shortly here. Also attended the chamber event, the grand opening of the Grande Prairie Veterans Association Food Bank. It's great to see that initiative, and it was a great turnout at that event. And as mentioned, attended the Experience Grande Prairie event, third annual event. That event just continues to grow. I heard from many people that attended that night and following, wow, what a great event, thinking that it's free. Very thankful for not only the free entertainment, but a great way to run into neighbors and try new food trucks and really just to celebrate all things Grande Prairie. In conjunction with that, it was interesting. I had done a social media post, and Kim Mitchell's band reached out saying, you know what? When we were toured around your community, we learned so much, and we thought it was so great, the information the drivers were sharing with us, the staff, everybody we met was incredible. So kudos to the organizers from our team in the city of Grande Prairie and the work that they did, and the volunteers that support that. And the sponsors, significant sponsors. So great event again. In conjunction with that, the Grande Prairie Intercultural Association had an event over in the adjacent to the old St. Joe's Church, so in the community village parking lot there. The GP Intercultural Association had an event called Around the World in Bites, so I dropped by that on the Saturday. It was a very well attended event, and they had lots of tents, and I thought, for their first sort of year to look to do a multicultural event in conjunction with Experience GP, I thought that was a great first year. Had a meeting with the key leads and representatives of Growing the North in conjunction with Invest Grande Prairie to talk about a recap from last year, as well what's on the radar for this year. I attended with council the stakeholder meeting of the Grande Prairie Public Library with my fellow golfers, attended the Reading U golf tournament, and although we were the most honest team, there was a difference between -10 and par. So although there was 220 golfers in that tournament, we were in that -10 to par, which isn't really that bad. So even though we were the most honest, and as Councillor Blackmore put it, the biggest losers, it was a pretty tight race for sure.
We were all winners.
Yes.
Kids all got money.
Yes. It was a great fundraising event for the Reading U and the incredible work that they do in regards to literacy of youth in our region. Following that tournament, that evening, I attended the Grande Prairie Storm jersey auction, which was great to see industry out there again supporting the jersey auction. There was a part of the program that evening is called In the Hot Seat, and they really sort of quiz some of the players and what they see on the horizon. It looks like it's going to be a great team and some very big, physically big players, and really, I thought it was a great event by the Grande Prairie Storm. I think it was this week. This week, no, last week, had a meeting with the representatives from the Billy Graham Association, and they are having a very large event beginning in November, 2 days, 2 evenings, all ages, and so keep that on your radar. On Saturday, as many of my colleagues stopped by the Special Olympics Touch-A-Truck, I was speaking to one of the industry representatives who was blown away by not only the community spirit in the event, but really what a positive community event that was, and just getting youth engaged in industry and different sort of vehicles that were there, the fundraising. It was just, all in all, it was a great event. Yesterday, attended the Parkinson Step and Stride with my colleagues, as well as the National Firefighters Memorial Day ceremony, and today, as mentioned, the Fetal Alcohol Syndrome proclamation down at Ernie Radburn Pavilion. Thanks to the Rotary Group of Grande Prairie, the Friday Club, for cooking burgers and hot dogs and coming out and supporting that event. Great turnout today. Many organizations that are partners in alcohol and fetal alcohol and addiction industries and rather associations. Great turnout today, and thank you to my colleagues for joining me on that. With that, as already mentioned, thank you to Chief McEachran. From the moment that I had the pleasure to meet her, I knew she had Grande Prairie in her heart. I know she'll take it with her, and I know I hope you come back often. Keep in touch. We look forward to hearing about the great things that you're doing in Ontario. And with that, I think it'll probably be the last time we see our CEO's birthday on Facebook, because I'm sure it won't be there next year to remind you. But happy birthday to Shane and our fearless leader. With that, I will say good evening and thanks for being here.